Welcome back to Double Down University. I'm back at you guys with a NFL Prizepicks video for December 18th. And I'll give you guys my picks. So I have Miles Sanders over 69.5 or 68.5 rushing yards. Greg Dulcich over 37.5 receiving yards. Sam Darnold over 25.5 passing attempts. Terry McLaurin over 58.5 receiving yards. And Jalen Hurts over 8 rushing attempts. So let's get into it. So Miles Sanders, he has been crushing teams that are bottom 5, bottom 10 in rush defenses. So against those three teams, he's faced three teams this year that has bottom 10 rush defenses. And the first one was against the Giants. He's had 17 carries, 144 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Against Green Bay, he had 21 carries, 143 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then against Houston, he had 17 carries, 93 yards, and 1 touchdown. And on the Bears, they give up 4.8 rushing yards per carry. And since the Roquan Smith trade, they have bumped that up to 5 yards per carry, which is terrible. So I think this is a really, really good spot for him to go over this number of, I think it was 68.5. So I think that's a good spot for him. Moving on to the next one, Greg Dulcich. He has another favorable matchup. He goes up against the Arizona Cardinals, and Arizona Cardinals are one of the worst teams in the league at guarding tight ends. And I'll kind of show you guys here. So let's go back. Okay, so tight ends. Oh, let's see, go back a little further. Okay, so here against tight ends, yep, they're actually the worst team. They're dead last, so they give up 6 receptions per game, and they give up 73 yards to tight ends, which is terrible. Greg Dulcich in this spot, the reason I like him is because he is second in the NFL in air dots, so average depth of throw or depth of target. So he ranks second amongst tight ends in that, and then he also ranks second in tight ends amongst deep catches. So he is a big athletic receiver, and this is a really favorable matchup for him. As you can see, he's went over this number in every game except for 3 games this year. It's also important to note that Russell Wilson is going to be out, or probably out today. So that leaves him with Mr. Brett Rypien. So the last time he's played with Brett Rypien, he has plenty of chances and plenty of opportunities, as he's had 9 catches, or 9 targets, I should say, and 6 catches for 51 yards. So I really like this spot for him as well. And then also Courtland Sutton is out too. So that's another reason for me to take this pick too, is because I feel like they can do a lot of short and intermediate throws and just kind of check down and get the ball out and get it to him. He can get some yards, being as though he's athletic. They don't have his break tackle stat up here, but your average yards after the catch is 5.4. Average target on the route is 18.1. Average yards per route run is 1.45. And then, as I said earlier, average depth of target, 11 yards, 11.5 yards. So I really like this spot for him as well. Moving on to the next one. This one is kind of just a game script play, and more of just, I think that Carolina will be down majority of the game. So in this, I have Sam Darnold over 25.5 passing attempts. Now this year he's only played 2 games, so the sample size is super small, and as you can see, he's barely touched this line. But if the Carolina Panthers are going to be down in this game, I think that there's plenty of opportunities where he's going to have to throw the ball, and they're not going to run the ball. But also a play on that Pittsburgh is against the run. They are 20th against the run as far as opponents' rushes per game, and then Carolina are 12th in the league at 27 rushing attempts per game. So I think, and then also yards per rush. So they're one of the top 10 teams in the league in yards per rush, so at 4.2. So opponent yards per rush at 4.2. So I think that they can stop the run and slow down Foreman, and they would be able to pass the ball. But where you attack Pittsburgh the most is through the air. So they are 27th in the league in yards per pass at 7.2. as well as average opposing throws per game, which is 33.8. So that's what more than enough to get him over this 25 and a half. And then as well as yards per game, they give up 242 yards per game, which is 24th in the league. So I think that you should attack Pittsburgh through the air instead of through the run, and I think they will kind of stop the run, and then they will have to be forced to throw the ball. Hopefully Pittsburgh goes up early so it can only boost his passing attempts, because all he really needs is 10 attempts a half, or 10 attempts in one half, and 5 or 6 attempts in the second half. So if they're down, more than likely he's going to have to throw the ball, especially if they're up by like more than one score. Now, I know that Carolina is favorite, but I think a lot of that is based on just the recent trend that they're on, and they've won, I think it's 2 in a row or 3 in a row since he's been the starter. So I think he's 2-0, but a lot of times since he's been the starter, oh, here it is. Since he's been a starter, he hasn't really been able to throw the ball as much because they've been running the ball so well. Let me see if I can show you guys. So with Foreman, and they kind of have a mixture of Foreman and Chuba Hubbard. So with Foreman, his game log, so like the last 2 weeks that they've played with Mr. Darnold, he has 24 carries and then 21 carries. So I think, and then a lot of that is like 113 yards and then 74 yards. So I really like this spot for Darnold. Moving on to the next one is Terry McLaurin. So Terry McLaurin, this is a great spot for him. He has torched the Giants in his career. And I don't know if I can show you guys. Yep, so the last time he played the Giants was actually before the bye, which was about 2 weeks ago. And he put up 8 catches for 105 yards and a touchdown on 12 targets. So the targets is there. As you can see, 12 targets, 6 targets, 7 targets, 11, 9, 8. So he's going to have plenty of volume to be able to get this done. And the number is just too low for me. Like, even when you look at his history versus the Giants. So in every game he has played against the Giants, he has went over this number in every matchup. His lowest output is 74 yards back in 2020. And he even had 12 targets in that matchup. So all the targets is up. He's had no less than 8 targets in every matchup against the Giants career-wise. So I think that's a great spot for him. And then also, when you look at who he's going up against. So I know that Adoree Jackson is out for today. So that's going to be a big relief for him. So he's going to be going up against the Nick McLeods of the world, the Ron Darius Williamses of the world, as well as the Fabian Moreau and Cordell Flott. So he should be able to feast against these corners that he's going up against, second string, third string corners. So really like that as well. Moving on to the last one. So the last one, it kind of correlates with Miles Sanders a little bit, but the reason being is Jalen has hit this number at like a 69% clip of going over 8 rushing attempts per game. So they kind of used Jalen and Miles in the RPO. If you watch the Eagles play, they use RPO where they basically have a play on a defensive end, leave him unblocked, and then if he decides to crash down and tackle and go for Miles, then Jalen just takes it around the edge and keeps it, for a rush or a rush attempt. If they decide to go at Jalen, Jalen just hands it off to Miles, and Miles goes and, gets a little inside zone action. So I really like this. I wouldn't advise to play this with the Miles Sanders prop, but you could, because it can also correlate well with him, because if they're going to run the ball against as bad of a defense as I just mentioned previously about Chicago, then I think that is both obtainable for both of them. But you don't want to get in a pickle where you need both of them in the same game. So I would kind of split them up. One card that you don't put Miles in, you can put Jalen in, and then vice versa. So those are my plays for today. So I go back through them. Miles Sanders over 68.5 rushing yards. Greg Dulcich over 37.5 receiving yards. Sam Darnold over 25.5 pass attempts. Terry McLaurin over 58.5 receiving yards. And Jalen Hurts over 8 rushing attempts. I appreciate you guys. Please like, comment, subscribe, and please put in the comments what you guys are going with today. What are your picks for today? And best of luck. and I'll see you guys next time.